Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is like the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. Canto 2, Chapter 10, entitled Bhagavatam is the Answer to All Questions. Quite an ambitious title to a chapter, right? Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. We're in text 45. So we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. We have it written on the board here for those who want. And otherwise, yeah, there should be the copy. Is that copy?
Is there the red set?
Is the red set? Do we have the red set somewhere? Oh, yeah, it's on the top shelf. Yeah. There we go. That's it. Na Asya Karmani Janma Adao Parasya Anuvidhiyate Kartritva Pratisheda Artam Mayaya Aropitam Hi Tat Nasya Karmani Janmadao Parasyanu Vidyate Kartritva Pratishedhartam Mayaya Ropitam Hitat Nasya Karmani Janmadao Parasyanu Vidyate Kartritva Pratishedhartam Maya Ropitam Hitat Nasya Karmani Janmadao Parasyanu Vidyate Kartritva Pratishedhartam Maya Ropitam Hitat
Nasya Karmani
Janmado
Parasyanu
Vidyate Kartritva Pratishedhartam Mayaya Ropitam Hitat
Nasya Karmani Janmadao Parasyanu Vidyate
Kartritva Pratishedhartam
Mayaya Ropitam
Hitat
Nasya Karmani Janmado Parasyanu Vidyate Kartritva
Pratishedhartam
Mayaya Ropitam
Hitat Nasya Karmani Janmado Parasyanu Vidyate. Kartritva Pratishedhartam. Mayayaropitam hitat.
Nasakarmani janmado.
Nasakarmani janmado.
Parasyanu vidiyate.
Parasyanu Vidyate.
Kritva pratishedhatam.
Kartritva Pratishedhartam.
Mayayaropitam hitat.
Mayayaropitam hitat. Would anyone online like to recite the verse?
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Parashanu vidyate.
Parasyanu Vidyate.
Kartritva pratisedhartam.
Kartritva Pratishedhartam.
Mayaya ropitam hitat.
Mayayaropitam hitat.
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Parasyanu vidyate.
Parasyanu Vidyate.
Kartratva pratisedhartam.
Kartritva Pratishedhartam.
Mayayaropitam hitat.
Mayayaropitam hitat.
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Nasya karmani janmadao.
Parasyanu vidyate.
Parasyanu Vidyate.
Kartritva pratishedhartam.
Kartritva Pratishedhartam.
Mayaya ropitam hitat.
Mayayaropitam hitat. We'll go to the word for word. Na,
Na.
never.
Never.
Asya,
Asya.
of the creation.
Of the creation.
Karmani,
Karmani.
in the matter of.
In the matter of.
Janma adao,
Janma adao.
creation and destruction.
Creation and destruction.
Parasya,
Parasya.
of the supreme.
Of the supreme.
Anuvidiyate,
Manovidiyate.
it is so described.
It is so described.
Kartritva,
Kartritva.
engineering.
Engineering.
Pratishedha artam,
Pratiseda artam.
counteract.
Counteract.
Mayaya,
Mayaya.
by the external energy.
By the external energy.
Aropitam,
Aropitam.
is manifested.
Is manifested.
He,
He.
for, taught, the creator.
Creator.
Translation. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's my birthday. So on my birthday, I'm supposed to get to do everything I like to do best, right?
Yes.
So what I like to do best in the world is read and discuss Prabhupada's purports. So I'm getting to do that. So it's definitely a happy birthday. Hare Krishna. The Vedic direction for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world is this. Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayant yabi sambhishanti, etc. That is, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman. And after annihilation, everything is conserved in Brahman. Gross materialists without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan conclude material nature to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestation And the modern scientist also shares this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause of all the manifestations of the material world. This view is refuted by all Vedic literature. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on the Vedanta philosophy, says, Janma Dyasya Yatonbaya Ditirtashtateshva Vigya Svarat, etc. Inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism Jadmadhyasya by saying Abhigya and Svarat. That is, the Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction, but material nature is set into motion for creation by the supreme conscious being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 10. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate characharam hetunanena kanteya jagad viparivartate. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord, adyakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act as a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. Although it appears to the layman that the mother gives birth to the child, the experienced man knows that the father gives birth to the child. The material nature therefore produces the moving and standing manifestations of the material world after being contacted by the Supreme Father, and not independently. Considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples on the neck of the goat. The Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this logic of Ajagala Sthana Nyaya as follows, as explained by His Divine Grace Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj. Quote, the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhan, and as efficient cause is known as maya. But since it is inert matter, it is not the remote cause of creation. Kaviraj Goswami states as follows from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 5, text 61. Ata eva Krishnamula Jagat Karan Prakriti Karana Yaiche Ajagalastan. Because Karanar Navashai Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, the inert matter is neither efficient nor the material cause of the cosmic manifestation. Sri Kapila Dev has said, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 28, text 40. Yato mukad vis pulinga dumad vapis vasambhavat apyatmat vena bimatad yatagni pritag umukat. The original fire, its flame, its sparks, and its smoke are all one. For fire is still fire, yet is different from the flame. Flame is different from sparks, and sparks are different from the smoke. In every one of them, namely in the flames, in the sparks, and in the smoke, the integrity of fire is present, yet all of them are differently situated with different positions. The cosmic manifestation is compared to the smoke because when smoke passes over the sky, so many forms appear, resembling many known and unknown manifestations. The sparks are compared to living entities, and the flames are compared to material nature, pradhan. One must know that each and every one of them is effective simply because of being empowered by the quality of the original fire. Therefore, all of them, namely the material nature, the cosmic manifestation, and the living entities, are but different energies of the Lord, fire. Therefore, those who accept the material nature as the cosmic manifestation's original cause, prakriti, the cause of creation according to Sankhya philosophy, are not correct in their conclusion. The material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. Therefore, setting aside the supreme Lord as the cause of all causes is the logic of Ajagala Sthana Nyaya, or trying to milk the nipples on the neck of a goat. The nipples on the neck of the goat may seem like sources of milk, but to try to get milk from such nipples would be foolish. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, yeah.
Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshre Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 45. Nasya karmani janmadao parasyanu vidiyate kartritva pratished hartam mayaropitam hitat. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. All right, so here on December 3rd, 2021, we're following in the footsteps of great sages from the past, ancient times, really ancient times. This is spoken by Srila Shukadeva Goswami on the banks of the Ganges. About 5,000 years ago, and it's narrated and it's described by Srila Sutta Goswami at a holy place called Namasharanya, with the people dedicated to self-realization thousands of years ago. And this Bhagavatam goes back, actually. It's timeless. So there are several points. It's such a monumental purport here. Okay, so it's important to see like what's at the foundation, what's at the source of all existence, and this touches on that. And so one approach is, well, the substratum of all existence is matter, And so if the substratum of all existence is matter, then really nothing matters. Right? Yeah, thank you. So, right, because even like, we do a lot of like psychology and things like that. And then you can like self-esteem and worthiness and like that. But really, if like at the core, if at the core of our belief system, at the core, I am this bag of pus and bones and stool and blood and like that. How much self-esteem could I have really? No, really. Okay. No, it's an important point. Okay. So fortunately, this is not like our conclusion in the Bhagavatam. But now Prabhupada, he has a sentence here. Gross materialists without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan conclude material nature to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestation. And the modern scientist also shares this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause of all the manifestations of the material world. Okay, so he's grouping together a gross materialist and like the modern scientific approach. This Bhagavatam is a science. It's a science of self-realization. So it's certainly not like opposed to the scientific method. At the same time, like, just like religion is meant to like give the essence of spiritual experience. What goes on in the name of religion often like becomes like a major barrier to actual experience of spirituality and God. So similarly, so like there's the essence of science, which means like knowledge and a process that gives us realized knowledge. And then oftentimes what goes on in the name of science, like scientism, becomes a sort of like dogma. And so, yeah, just like, right, like in Sappho seminars, we're often that, a lot of that is about taking a look at the legacy we're bringing from our past. What's the legacy we're bringing from our mother, from our father, from our upbringing? And to look at it, to see like, does this really make sense for me? Does this really work for me now? So I say, okay, and okay, here's something that just let me consciously take it with me. This belief system I got, this emotional experience I got. Or like, actually, maybe it worked for me 20 years ago, but now it's just like dead weight, it's garbage. So let me leave it aside. So similarly, let's call them beliefs we grew up with. Let's call it the evolutionary perspective. We get to be independently thoughtful. We get to be independently thoughtful, to take a look like, well, yeah, I mean, I heard this in third grade, at 7 years old, from Mrs. Gerbart. And later, as years went on, okay, does this really make sense? Is this really scientific, logical? The idea that matter is the source of everything, right? And there was a soup, primordial soup. You got it. And there's primordial soup. Then the matter came together and it formed like conscious entities. And so consciousness at best is an epiphenomena of the combination of matter. Okay. Yeah, well, that's like every scientifically minded person knows that, right? So it's, well, what is science? Okay. So science means there's a logical hypothesis. So on the mathematical level, there's no real theory that holds together. And science means we get to do an experiment. We get to do an experiment to verify the assertions of the hypothesis. Okay, so, all right, okay, yeah, so matter comes together and then it forms all sorts of life. Yeah, so in the laboratory, no, that's never happened. But if you don't believe it, then you're primitive. You're non-intellect. What's that?
Outside of the laboratory.
Yeah, or in nature. There's trillions of examples of life coming from life. A seed comes from a tree, which is alive. We come from parents who are alive. There's 0 examples in experience of life coming from dead matter. So therefore, the scientific intellectual conclusion is that life comes from dead matter.
Wait, what about the octopus that goes to the bottom of the ocean and dies and then creates a habitat for new life before it's dead? But it's creating life.
No, it started alive.
Yeah, like it goes down there and dies until its babies are born to protect it. Sorry, that just came to my mind. I was
Yeah,
like,
so
well,
the octopus was alive.
yeah, and then it died, and then after it dies, things grow from it. Yes, it's okay. That makes sense because like the ocean, bottom of the ocean is not.
The octopus is alive. Okay, and then at some point, all bodies die. Okay,
Yeah.
so just we get to take a look, like what's making sense here as far as the source of everything, or even the idea of, let's say, everything came from this term, Big Bang, right? Because we see commonly in life, like let's say if like a bomb goes off over a city, then the city becomes more organized, structured, and beautiful. We see that all the time. And actually, we don't. No. In physics, there's what's called the law of entropy, right? Just like, okay, right? We all know, right? Like, if we don't give attention to the dishes in the sink, or we don't sweep the floor and the kitchen will get cleaned on its own. We all have experience of that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, right? But now some of you might think, like, what's David Wolf talking about? That's never happened in my house. No, for the kitchen to become more organized and structured, we need a conscious entity to give attention to it. Okay, so therefore the scientific, some of you to this point in class may have picked up, he's using sarcasm. You may have picked up.
I'm shocked.
Right. So the scientific approach, the scientific belief is that from 0 level organization, big explosion, naturally come Shakespeare's sonnets. No, that's anti-scientific. I mean, no, one can believe that. That requires a whole lot of blind faith. Okay. So things go to higher levels of organization when there's a conscious person giving attention to it, whether it's our kitchen or the universe or Shakespeare's sonnets. Okay. So, okay. So then there's conceptions. All right, so Prabhupada used it a few times. It's a Vedic analogy, the nipples on the neck of a goat. I mean, like it might look that way, but you're not going to get any milk from that. So the material energy, you probably, most of you, or all of you have heard me use this analogy, right? Giving a workshop at a hospital in Golden, Colorado, doctors, nurses, hospital. We started, okay, someone comes to you, I've hurt my finger. So in that simple phrase, my finger, there are 2 entities. Because this is, so here we're talking about, let's call it the metacosmic. So we can just see the same principle in the microcosmic. So there's the finger and the owner of the finger, my finger. So I asked the doctors and nurses, who are you treating? The finger, the owner of the finger. They were a little bewildered. So that's the nipples on the neck of the goat analogy. So that's the same idea. Okay. So there's no healing potency in the finger, it's dead matter. But it appears, the human body, it's going to be food for worms or ashes or like that. Okay. There's no healing potency. Now, but it appears to have healing potency, like digestive potency, and I cut my finger, maybe. Oh yeah, it does. Why? It appears to have healing potency. Prabhupada writes, inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. So the body appears to have healing potency because the spirit soul's inside. Because the spirit soul's inside. Spirit soul leaves, it goes to entropy. It goes to less and less organization. Okay, because the spirit souls. So we can look at spirit as the substratum of all existence. And if we go, well, this verse really talks about, okay, so then beyond the spirit soul, then there's the oneness of spirit. And then the source of that, even more fine, is what's called Paramatma, super soul, and the substratum of all existence, right where we started our talk today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudeva means the all-pervading person. So at the substratum of all existence is Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, the all-pervading person. Okay, so this isn't meant to be just an abstract philosophy. This is life. This is Vidyavadu Jivanam, the life of all transcendental knowledge. So because, okay, right? So Natvevaham Jatunasam Natvanamejanarupa Natevanam Bhavishyama Sarvevayamatakparam. Never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us ever cease to be. Meaning we are eternally spiritual persons, right? So, okay, so in this body, this David Wolf body, it's 61 years old, 61 years old, okay. But the spirit soul, that's the actual person, that existed 161 years ago. 61 trillion years ago, and much, much, much longer than that. It will continue to exist. So how are we planning for that timeless life, for that timeless life? Even technically speaking, if we deconstruct it a bit more, so this body has existed for 61 years. Wrong. Right. So technically,
Right.
what's that?
This body existed for 61 years.
61. The way Prabhupada would count, I'd be 62. The way Prabhupada, but typically, the way, we had birthday parties growing up. No, but Prabhupada would count like in conception as the first year. So, but anyhow, so like really, I don't have this. I'm not in the same body that I was in 5 hours ago when I woke up. Right, the body is always changing. Right? That's described here, like clouds. Material nature is like clouds. Okay, it's like a cloud. Right now, that cloud looks like a horse. No, now it looks like a big mountain. Now the cloud looks like that. So like right now, there's some material energy, and right now it looks like a David Wolf formation. And maybe 100 years ago, a particular material energy that gathered around the spirit soul looked like a frog or something, or a monkey, or maybe a demigod, who knows? Okay. So this is like, there's not substance. The substance is in the spirit soul. That's why it's so vital to understand who we are in the essence and what is the essence of all creation. And that's actually quite encouraging. The essence is not dead matter. Right? The substratum is everything. The substratum of everything is the all-pervading person. And our intrinsic nature, we awaken to our intrinsic spiritual nature. This is so important because that's where life is, that's where vibrancy is. To the extent that we realize, not just intellectually, to the extent that we realize who we are as spiritual entities, because the nature of spirit, such and none, eternally full of bliss and knowledge. And that nature is awakened to the extent that we serve the Supreme Person with some attempt at love and devotion. Then that's that Jivara Svupori Krishnara Nityadas. Okay, and so, and to the extent that we're doing something else, by Amdvitiya Biniveshitasya, to the extent that I'm misidentifying my eternal spiritual self, that eternal spark that's a person, a spiritual person, transcendental person. So the substratum of everything is transcendental personhood, not matter, not even the great oneness, but transcendental personhood. And so And so to the degree that I'm misidentifying my eternal spiritual self with material body, then I'm going towards death. That's what, that's what we call the masks and survival strategy. There's no thriving, there's no life there. Okay, that's why Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita emphasize, right, that real friendship, real love means to support each other, to realize who we are, yes, intellectually and experientially, as life itself, in connection with the source of all. Aham Sarvasya. Nalini quoted this the other night on our Gita class. Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate Iti Madhva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvita. The source of all material and spiritual energy, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And yeah, so this is actual friendship. We're bringing each other to, that's why Prabhupada talks about. He gives us purport on the meaning of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He says, this is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This is the original consciousness of the self. So I had, even just yesterday, I had a few clients in different parts of the world, but similar experiences with chanting. Somehow, in coaching, we take a neutral stance. But somehow, all my clients seem to be chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra japa. I think it's random chance.
Of course.
I think it's so, yeah, and they're all chanting like this chanting. It is so foreign. It is so foreign from their upbringing and my upbringing. At the same time, it feels like coming home. Like, I don't want to identify myself as a Hare Krishna. I do not identify myself as a Hare Krishna. I do identify myself as a practitioner of the science of self-realization. That's called Bhakti Yoga, called Krishna consciousness. Right? So it's not about, are you with this, are you with that? Let's put ourselves and others in boxes to avoid meaningful communication, to deepen understanding of tattva, of truth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they were saying like, well, this is giving them a peace and a joy, like it works. And yeah, and that Vishaya Vinivartante, Nirharasya Dehinam, Vaso Varjam Vasopyasya, Param Dristra Nivartate. Yeah, it's the original consciousness of the soul. And that's why this is like coming home. Nichisiddha Krishna Prema Saja Kabama, Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karye Vidai. Love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. And it's awakened. Like this transformation, it's awakened by the process of this hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Or any legitimate bona fide names of the Supreme, names of God. Yes, it's so, yes, it's, so this is life. And to the extent that we're supporting each other, maybe through our nice guy or nice girl strategies, or supporting each other just due to fear because, I just want to belong. To the extent that we're overtly or solely supporting each other to continue identification with gross matter, then that's called violence. But I do it with a smile. I just want to feel like I belong somewhere. I mean, I don't want to rock the boat. And we're doing violence. Waste of human life. Shama Evi gave them. So, yeah, so, and that's why this is a science. Science means a consistent hypothesis, logical, rational hypothesis. And for decades, I've attempted to find flaws in the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. I've sadly failed. So it's a consistent hypothesis. And then science is a process we get to follow, to experience in the laboratory of our heart, in the laboratory of our consciousness, the assertions of the hypothesis. And so, when I developed the Vedic personality inventory in the mid-90s, as part of my PhD studies, I described it to the professors who were guiding me. The idea is it's intended to be an empiric basis for happiness, an empiric basis for fulfillment. An empiric means you can practically measure it, you can experience it. An empiric basis for all the contract qualities, radiance and vitality and peace and inner security. And so the idea is, to the extent that we develop sattvic or even Shuddha sattva, sattvic worldviews and habits, then that will correlate positively to all those experiences we're looking for. To the extent that we cultivate and associate with rajasic and tamasic worldviews and habits, then the result is clear. And we're going to be experiencing greed, hankering, misery, frustration, inner violence, self-deception, etc., etc. Prabhupada sometimes compares to like a piece of wood represents tamas, smoke represents rajas, and the fire that represents sattva. So what we really want is the fire. What we really want is the fire. With fire, it really heats and we can cook. So to cultivate sattva guna, and at the same time to not make that the ultimate goal, to make this devotional service, the individual, what's called the jiva soul, the individual spiritual person serving the supreme person, that's even more pure than sattva. And sattva is like the most conducive platform to go to that transcendental platform. And so another analogy Prabhupada gives here is electrification. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. So we get to, we get to become fire. That's the opportunity in this human form of life. By engaging the matter of like our eyes, our tongue, like right now we're engaging our ears and power of speech and hearing this transcendental philosophy. Right? Every word of Prabhupada's purport it reveals truth, and it's non-different from the truth it reveals. Thus, it's transformational, whatever we cognitively understand or not. So we're engaging our tongue and eyes and hearing this sublime literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can say, oh, so that's material eyes. No, we are spiritualizing our ears. We're spiritualizing our tongue when we chant Hare Krishna, when we hear this sublime philosophy, when we drive in the car at 4 a.m. to come to a kirtan program. Well, the car is material. We're spiritualizing the car because we're using it for spiritual purposes. This is how to spiritualize the world. It's not a sentimental bluff and fluff thing. It's not a sentimental thing. We get to spiritualize our legs, or we get to come, we get to be fire. We get to be fire. Yes, yeah. By becoming red. So it's like, yeah, this is matter. And we use in this whole process of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, it's the science, it's the manual of how to whatever extent we want to make it our life purpose. And this is right. So this is 61st birthday. So hopefully it's an opportunity to dedicate myself more fully to live for my highest purpose. And you too. Right. And so Right. So the highest purpose, the self-realization, realizing who I am as an eternal spiritual entity and engaging in the highest function of realized souls, pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this is a manual how to use, the human body, we can speak of it as a collection of pus and bones and blood and this and that. It's also a beautiful creation, And we can use it to further entangle ourselves and others into material illusion, or we can use this body, we can spiritualize it. And in its highest sense, this so-called material body is meant to be used in devotional service. It's meant to vibrate spiritual absolute truth. It's not meant, the tongue is not meant to vibrate nonsense, blah, 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 that entangles us further. Material life, same with the eyes, is meant to see transcendental form that purifies our existence. Okay, and the legs are meant to dance in glorification of God. So we can do dancing that sometimes use a term like dog dancing. We can use dancing that further implicates us in just the illusion of material life and all the misery of that. And this, we in our programs we focus on like share what you're feeling in the form of I am experiencing your experience. So the essential point of that, it's not just some new age, feel your feelings, but like experience my experience, for example, of the pain, the rage, the shame. And then like that moves me to like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Whereas if I'm numbing my experience, then I'm going to do the same thing next year. And I'll come back birth after birth, samsara dava. I'm going to come back birth after birth until I'm in a raw way experiencing my experience. Let that experience move me to urgency to live my life for that happiness that'll never be crushed by time. That's the essential point of this feel my feelings, experience my experience. Let it move me to live purposefully in the most sublime sense with more urgency than last year. And in a sense, it's easy. Sometimes we hear from Prabhupada, it's an easy process. But at the same time, to the extent that we're conditioned, it's not easy. Meaning like, okay, to truly live a spiritual life, not just like say spiritual and then then like people will think I'm a good person or something. To really live a spiritual life where like I'm really realizing who I am as not the body, spirit, soul, servant of God. It requires taking a strong stand because material energy, which we've attracted, the spirit soul is like a magnet. We have material desires, will attract material energy. We have spiritual desires, Paramatma, super soul. Super soul is the manifestation of Krishna that has direct contact with material energy. Bhagavan's playing the flute on the river being moving. Not that. So no direct connection. That's described in the verse. But yeah, so super soul, so soul's like a magnet. And so the material energy is like militantly dedicated to like keep us in material illusion. And that it can sound like some abstract philosophy, but that is a painful, suffering, agonizing condition. So to truly live a spiritual life requires like taking a strong stand, like I'm finished with this desert life of illusion and masks, and I'm dedicating myself to spiritualization, self-realization, super soul realization, devotional service. And I'm not going to just make up la-di-da processes. There's authorized process how to do that. And that's not stifling, but it means disciplining myself so that my original spiritual personality shines and radiates and expresses more and more each day of my life. There's a quote by some Spanish author, but I use it a lot. Yeah, that like I'm paraphrasing, but real freedom means the freedom to commit to our highest good. Right? And our highest good, this is the self-realization, realizing who we are as the owner of the finger, not the finger. otherwise. And well, I want to be free, so I don't want discipline or rules. And then basically what that means, in the name of freedom, I'm a slave to my genitals or my eyes or my tongue or my mind or my need. I just want people to like me. And I'm a slave to all of those lower level desires. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 45. Nasya karmani janmadao parasyanu vidyate kartritva pratishedhartam mayaropitam, he taught. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Hare Krishna, thanks for your attention. Thanks for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. There's nothing better to do on one's birthday or any of the other 364 days of the year. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments or questions at this time. Vishnu. Thank you. That's your comment.
Buddha is entropy.
Yeah, I like that connection. That's in agreement with Bhagavatam. To the extent that we're in Tamagun, right? We say like dead, dull matter is Tamagun, mode of darkness. Then that means that just things deteriorate. Things deteriorate. That's correct. And to the extent we're in Sakagun, then we're able to consciously act on the material energy and be the creator of our lives. Hare Krishna, Kristen. Thanks for joining us.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So far, it's a happy birthday. Thank you. Hare Krishna. I'm reminded of the saying. There's a saying. All great ideas eventually deteriorate into hard work. Okay, because like
That's following.
what's that?
That's a following.
Yeah, no, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. Oh, that's good. No, okay. All right. But then, like, it's a great idea. Clean the kitchen. Yeah. Whoa. That's a great idea. Okay, so now that we have this great idea and we're like buddies about it, and the kitchen will just kind of like get clean. No, all great ideas eventually deteriorate into hard work, because without the like conscious hard work, things go to less and less great. Regardless
a great idea.
What's that?
Regardless
of the great idea. Okay, no, because all change starts in the world of ideas. So we're not, we're not criticizing about. I think brainstorming and ideas. At the same time, it means like to consciously apply ourselves with intention to overcome material entropy. And to the extent that we're in tamas gun, then we know it's like, well, it's a great idea, yeah, but oh my God, okay. So yeah, tamas and entropy. Thank you, Vishnu. Krishna.
I can make a comment from the bits that I was hearing from the kitchen. I really like the way that you that you described, that you made a connection between this entropy that we were just talking about and kind of the creation. Like when you said, oh, the bomb goes off and then things get nice, or like the kitchen floor just gets clean on its own. And it kind of like really made it so clear for me, like the idea of the Big Bang. It's like, okay, let's even say that there was a Big Bang, and then like somehow all of these complex forms of life exploded out of the Big Bang without there being somebody to make like a specific, like maybe Krishna did make a Big Bang, but it had to be like a controlled fire that like just like a wildfire just kind of burns everything. You have a controlled fire that's used to whatever replenish the land. So that to me just makes so much sense. You have to have a controller to make sure that whatever the Big Bang or the chaos or whatever the thing that it's somehow controlled to create some kind of order. Otherwise, yeah, it just makes so much sense the way that you described. Like any kind of explosion just kind of tends to make things pretty bad. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that. And
I appreciate
glad that impacted. Thanks for that, thanks very much. Yeah, it's yes. And actually, if we read the Vedic Bhagavatam description of creation, it could be described as a Big Bang like that, and there's more details given than singularity ideas. But yeah, so whatever you want to call it, the Big Bang. But the whole process starts with a conscious person who has intention, or actually many conscious persons. In one sense, we are the creator of the material world because of our desires. The material world is here. So right. So it starts with conscious person. Without that, explosions don't lead to more beauty and structure. Thanks for that, Izzy.
And do some devil's advocate.
Yeah.
To,
Good.
because I think my understanding is like, at least the scientific version is that there's the Big Bang leads to disorder, destruction.
Yeah.
And then there's some organizing principle that starts to manifest. There's some organizing principles, there's entropy, and then there's whatever the opposite. There's some organizing principles, like that's my understanding of like the universal thing. And then so like a bomb goes off in a city. So let's say a bomb goes off in a city, everything's devastated, everything's dead.
Yeah.
And then after a period of time, maybe things start to grow again. Like
they grow again because people build things.
Well, no, so let's say just everything's devastated, everything's gone in life, and then like grass starts growing, like things start growing, plants take over the buildings, animals move in from other places or something like that. So like nature takes over, you know, like that kind of thing. So that's kind of like my understanding. Like the scientific thing is like there's some organizing principle which they don't understand. You know, they don't have a, you know, what is that organizing principle that things like universes develop, or you know, their gravity or things collect around the planet. Because you know, what is that about? But that's kind of my understanding. That first there's disorder, and then there's some organizing principle that comes to.
All right, thanks for that. So, okay, organizing principle, right? So, Bhagavatam, organizing principle. That's a conscious person, or maybe a team of conscious persons. Just like the kitchen can fall into disorder. Otherwise, come on, Mr. Scientist, that doesn't sound very scientific. Some organizing principle, ooh, you know. So yeah, organizing, it's true, organizing, just like the kitchen falls into disarray. And then the organizing principle is a conscious person or a team of persons. Okay, let's put the silverware here and the dishes there, and let's clean that, let's mop that. So the organizing principle are conscious persons. And that consciousness is irreducible. That consciousness, because again, science means you can do an experiment and show it. No one has ever done in the laboratory or seen in nature dead matter combined, dead matter without a living source combined to produce a conscious entity. We can believe that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of some combination of matter and chemicals and subatomic particles. Okay, then here we'll give you what, a $10, 50 cents, you want $100, get whatever chemicals you want and create a conscious entity. Go. They've never done it. So the organizing principle is conscious person.
So you gave me at one point, because I'm very interested in this topic, you gave me at one point a magazine called Origins.
Sure.
And it's super cool. It's like Krishna conscious scientists trying to basically show how all this stuff is nonsense. And they were talking about an experiment they did. They got like dry, I think amino acids and they like superheated them, and they were really excited because they made like little bubbles of amino acids.
Yeah.
That didn't do anything, but they were like bubbles.
Yeah.
And they were like really excited. They're like, this begins to show that
Right.
this is how it happened. And kind of then the more maybe like broader perspective is like, you basically just made like balloons of amino acids that don't do anything. You just put them in the little balls.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating how before having this discussion, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, they recreated life by making little balls of amino acids. When you really get down to the details, there's really nothing there.
There's a person behind it.
Thanks for these examples. Yeah, and that's something that really like drew me to Srila Prabhupada, or challenged me, or made me uncomfortable. That Prabhupada was the only one. You know, there's so many like whatever this one, spirituality guru from the, and there's but Hare Krishna Rohini. But Prabhupada was the only one that I'm aware of. Like he challenged the scientific paradigm, and that was like so cool. And he did it with logic and rationality. Because so Prabhupada, just what you described, you call it, okay, so you mixed chemicals and you created something that's dead. Like it does not reproduce. So Prabhupada, but then see this proves, Prabhupada said, this is a bluff. This is a bluff. So that's something that Prabhupada's really taken on, the whole evolutionary paradigm, which is basically based on higher level structure comes from lower level structure. No, not without consciousness. Thanks for sharing that example. Organizing principle, sure. So we accept organizing principle, conscious person, and consciousness. There's no evidence that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of a combination of atoms. Consciousness is an irreducible entity.
It sounds like so scientists like to give so many names to God. Maybe not Krishna and Govinda, but organizing principle.
Once they got it.
They constantly change the name for God, and they don't accept it's God, but it's just giving new names all the time. As like the limit of their knowledge, where when they reach the limit of their knowledge, then they name God.
Yeah.
Without knowing.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because we can see that like everyone's looking for God. Because let's say if we look at this, well, the source of everything, let's call it singularity. Don't use the word God. Don't use like Christ or Krishna or Allah or Buddha. Just like, let's call it singularity. It's very intellectual. Okay, so what is this? So what is this singularity? It's smaller than the smallest. It's infinitely dense. It's the source of everything. It exists beyond time. It's greater than the greatest, more powerful. That's like, it's all the descriptions of Krishna. It's all the descriptions of God, but you don't want to use that term. Okay. So again, so there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, which is really glorifying science that's used to establish these eternal spiritual truths. Idam is spoken by Sri Narada Muni. Idam pumsas tapasa shutasya suktasya suktasya chabudi dateo avichu torta kabibir mirupito yad utamashloka gunanuvarnanam. So Narada Muni, he's talking about chemistry and physics and politics and psychology and sociology, because yes, all of these fields of human endeavor, they find their beauty and perfection when they're used to glorify consciousness, glorify the Supreme Lord. I'm reminded in the field of, there's a saying about modern psychology. First, modern psychology lost its soul, then it lost its consciousness, and now it's lost its mind altogether. So just a point that comes, because when Prabhupada, see what he's indicating when he uses gross materialist and the modern material scientist approach, he's indicating that this so-called scientific approach, it's not objective. That's, come out of the delusion. No, it's there to promote gross materialism. It's there to promote forgetfulness of who we are as spiritual entities. That's why even though it's irrational that Shakespeare's sonnets came from a big explosion, it's irrational that to conclude that life comes from dead matter, even though we have trillions of examples to the opposite. even though it's irrational, but the dedication, the commitment is that there's that everything is material. There is nothing that is non-material. And then that's incredibly limiting because we all experience ourselves. Like, who is this person? Even if I say there is only matter, there's no such thing as consciousness. Well, there's some conscious entity that just communicated that to you, right? And so, yeah. So the thing was, first psychology lost its soul because the whole principle of science, take away spirit at all levels. Then it lost its consciousness. Then it lost its conscience, morality. And then it lost its mind altogether. Like when we get into the 50s and 60s with behaviorism and that sort of thing, then the philosophy is it's even an illusion to think that we have a mind, what to speak of a soul or consciousness. It's all just mechanistic, reductionistic, deterministic. So again, that's where we started the class. That is depressing. That is depressing. That is death. And identifying the living self with death. That is such a tragedy.
I think there's even more degradation, because like behaviorism is this, like I can learn a new behavior or something. And then there's like even more degradation where it's just there's chemicals are just responsible for the chemicals in the brain are responsible for what's happening. I feel like it's even like I don't know which part's lost next, but it seems like even further.
Yeah, you then you can get a pill and everything is fixed.
Because
Because
behaviorism,
you
at least you learn
have
a
no
new behavior.
responsibility.
Yeah, like I can change my habit with behaviorism, but then.
Yeah. So there's still some like volition.
Yeah.
It's a good point because that quote about psychology, first it lost its soul, now it's lost its mind. That's like from 50 years ago, the early 70s. But there's new levels of cynicism and degradation. It's a fact.
I think that's fair. I like what you said, because you can't, in my opinion, in psychology, like you can't just take a pill and make everything better. Like there's, like you said, there's behavior changes, like coping mechanisms, community, spirituality. Like it doesn't. I almost feel like if you just take medicine, you just turn into a robot and you're not feeling or living. But I also feel like psychology in general, I think that your sentiment's true. I mean, my psychiatrist, I had to tell him 3 times that my mom was dead, like where's the soul in that, or the empathy, or like caring, consciousness, like that's really interesting that you brought that up. Sorry, I didn't start that out.
Well, thanks for sharing, Valerie. Thanks for sharing that. And it's, I've been involved in these fields for like 45 years. And yeah, as far as like the psychiatric medication stuff, like I'm not absolutely against it. Like if like if it actually, but
It brings value.
in about 95% of the circumstances I've seen, it's used more to support someone to numb their experience, and as opposed to used in a way that really supports self-exploration and self-realization. I have seen rare instances where someone takes the medication and it really supports them to have a peaceful enough inner environment to go to honest introspection. More commonly, unfortunately, I've seen it used in a way that's just kind of like a crutch to avoid what is often a painful process of introspection.
Yeah, I think like you were saying earlier, like there's this conditioning that goes on that like you go to the doctor and everything's okay. Like your seminar you did, about the finger.
Yeah.
Like, so they're just, okay, we're treating your brain, we're not treating you as a person. And I find that really powerful. For me personally, it helps me, but I have witnessed and seen that numbness and that just apathy towards life. But I have got so many feelings inside this body that I don't think that anything, or I wouldn't be willing to take anything that would tamp them down. But it's just like anything else. It's like alcohol or sex or gambling or anything that raises your dopamine and instant gratification. I put it even along those lines.
They can all be escape hatches.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I like some of our seminars, we say, you want to take the seminar? You need to give your word of honor, no escape hatches.
Right, right. But caffeine.
Stephanie,
Hare Krishna. Um, it's really nice to be here and connect to community focused around self-realization in this form of Krishna consciousness. And like for me, I see how there are different forms that can resonate for me of spiritual philosophies or frameworks. But then I also see, like, I deeply resonate with what you mentioned, David, about realizing ourselves as the spirit soul and how that process of self-realization takes discipline. And I guess in some of this verse and purport, what struck me, I see a lot through this lens of feminine and masculine energy, and in I guess what I was getting was consciousness being connected to order, and that chaos, I guess an implication that I was reading into that I found conflicting for me was that chaos, or something like the Big Bang, or some explosion, even war, or like that there's some element of randomness to it, like that's not intentional too. And yeah, so I guess that is kind of at a macro lens, but at a micro lens for me in my personal process, it's like how much of my, I guess I'm in the question of how much of my like the genuine qualities of my diamond, like are, God, this is a hard thing to put into words for me, but it's like, what is the process? I guess I'm in the question of what is the process that will most deeply support my self-realization and my connection to my soul, and what are, like, essentially, is this Krishna consciousness process complete for me? And that feels like where I'm at. And I feel like something that I've been seeing lately has been how morning mantra meditation, sticking to a stricter process than a like more loose process, I'm seeing how that supports for me to connect to what feels like my best state of experiencing life in a place of love and connection and humility, to being devoted to God. And through that lens, I experience everything, the triggers, the chaos of life, as supporting my self-realization. But I also see how I have this freedom and this choice where I can explore what like, I guess how I'm unique as a soul, and in what ways like kind of deviate from the standard that's assigned in Krishna consciousness, like what supports Stephanie in her process of self-realization. I guess I feel like I'm wanting to reconcile the standard process given in the Gita and in the Bhagavatam given by Srila Prabhupada to support the soul. And I guess my question is how much like do we each vary as souls, and our like what does it look like for each of us as individual part and parcels of God to connect to Krishna in our own way. Yeah, and that was a lot. So I'm kind of rambling here, but there was just a lot of movement for me and stimulation and connections that this brought up. So yeah, I'm not sure what you got from that, but if you'd like to speak to that, thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing, Stephanie. I hear that you're in the question, you're in your process about what, because you're increasingly dedicating your life to self-realization, God consciousness, serving God with love. And you're looking at, okay, so like what's going to work best for you as the unique person, unique individual soul you are, and how does that relate to this process called Krishna consciousness given by Srila Prabhupada that we're talking about today. And yeah, so I hear you're in the question. You're in the question, and you're experimenting with some, disciplined morning mantra chanting, and you say, yeah, that's discipline, and that is kind of it. That isn't like moving me to. That is moving me to the state of being I want. Okay, yeah, that works. And then there's some other guidelines. And I know myself, if I look back more than 40 years, yeah, I'd be like, I don't have much trust in this process, but something, and then I would try something, eating prasadam. Like, well, this is the best food I ever had. Food's really important. Okay, so maybe, let me go towards vegetarianism, reading Prabhupada's books. Well, I'm not comfortable, but it actually makes more sense than everything. So just, I would try something and it's like, yeah, this works. And then I develop, you might say, more trust in the roadmap. We have a map to get from here to New York or something. Well, I don't know if I trust this map, but then, okay, well, here I am in North Georgia. And so far there have been 50 landmarks and I-10 and then Jacksonville and 99. And all 50 are just right there. So I don't know if with this next thing called South Carolina, this could be bogus. But so far, I'm going to trust it because it's like 50 out of 50 so far. I'm reminded as sort of a metaphor. It's kind of not a metaphor. It's kind of the actual thing. But like, let's get the Software Advanced Seminar. Whereas I guess there's a difference because, like I said, the Software Seminar is at least 99.5% of the human population will create immense benefit through the Software Seminar. That's my point of view. Whereas 100% of the population will create immense benefit by giving themselves to the process given by Prabhupada. And it's my point of view. It's like Software seminars. It sounds like, okay, look, we have these ground rules. Like for the 7 days, no meat eating, no intoxication, and no traveling in a motorized vehicle, no frivolous use of internet, no sexual activity like that. So it's like, okay, yeah, but we're all individuals. Well, that's the point. Like it's an artificial dichotomy. The point of everyone, like all 20 in the advanced seminar, or 15 or 25, the point of everyone following all the ground rules, that awakens everyone's individuality. Not like we're all the same. We're all, no, because everyone follows these ground rules, which are sattvic, and it awakens everyone's individuality. So That's my,
That's the individual.
yes.
No, finish your sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, got it. Yeah, it's just one more analogy that comes to me. It's just like, okay, like the rules of the road, you know, we can say, like we can say we all have our unique destinations. Okay, like, yes, I'm going to drive to Gainesville. I'm going to drive to Tallahassee. I'm going to drive to Atlanta. I'm going to drive to Miami. I'm going to drive to Tampa. But we say like, and because I'm an individual, I'm my own person. Today, December 3rd, it's my birthday. I'm going to drive on the left side of the road. To get to Orlando, I'm going to drive on the left side. And for me,
You deserve that, kid. You really deserve it on your birthday.
I feel understood.
Do you?
Yes. So today, my way to Orlando, like if I see it, because I'm a unique individual. So for me, red light will mean go very fast, like accelerate. No, because we all agree to follow the rules of the road, drive on the right side. Red light means stop. Here's the speed limit, you know, because we all agree to follow the rules of the road. That frees us to achieve our individual destinations. So these principles of bhakti yoga, and what I'm speaking, you can use, Stephanie, when you can agree or not agree or agree with 80%. I'm speaking, I believe, 100%. This is what the Bhagavatams give it. And this is an authorized process for each of us to develop our unique relationship with God. Okay, so I've given a few analogies, but I think to be complete, we need one more analogy from the sport of tennis. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be complete. Okay, so when I was growing up, like I would play some tennis. Like my father taught me how to play tennis, and it's just like. Yes, there's so many things, like keep the wrist straight and hit the ball there and your left foot here and the backswing and keep your eyes and bend your knees like that. And so I would do like that. And then I would like watch on TV, I would watch Bjorn Borg, and it was clear to me, Bjorn Borg did not know how to hit a forehand. He got it all wrong. Too much topspin. Now you might say, well, he did win Wimbledon 5 times. You say, no, he got it wrong. My father showed me how to do it. Now, it's not that Bjorn Borg didn't know the basics. Bjorn Borg was so expert and so solid in the foundations of how to hit a forehand and backhand. And on that foundation, he developed his personal style. You might say his personal voice. Okay, now, if I tried to hit a forehand like Bjorn Borg, I'd be an even worse tennis player than I am now. Okay, right? So we want to become expert in the foundation, and if we try to hit our own form of topspin without like being like really solid in the foundations, we really won't get anywhere.
Thank you. I like your analogy, and analogy of the ground rule of the road. When we don't follow the ground rule of the road, we may not come to our destination, and even more so, we may, get in trouble.
We may do harm.
We may do harm to ourselves, to others, and similarly, like I'm thinking of the advanced schools and all the advanced schools I have been in, when people choose like, oh, those ground rules don't apply to me. I'm going to do this thing. It doesn't apply. I'm an individual. Identifying with the person they are when they enter identifying with the person they are when they enter the advanced schools, and not seeing like, well, there is an other person that is available, or the opportunity is there for that other person to come out. But because I'm so entrenched in identifying with like, that's who I am, with this value system, this value system, then I'm not going to follow the ground rule of the advanced schools. And we have seen again and again that when that happens, either, like the person gets in trouble, with themselves, like say, like something happened with their brain. Very disturbed because they don't get the course. And most of the time what we have seen is that some people don't really get value. And so like, okay, see, my goal is self-realization. My goal is to stop identifying with that personality, that, cartoon character of Mary Lasheen. then in order to do that, I will need to let go of what I know, I think I am, to allow the maker of the rules, the maker of the law, to guide me, and then follow the maker of the law, and the maker of the law, and the maker of the universe, and the maker of me, to come to a place of really realizing who I am at the core.
Thanks for that, Mom. Yeah. Yeah, it's not just humor making jokes, but actually if we don't follow the rules of the road, our freedom will be very constrained in a prison or debt or hospital. And yeah, relatedly, like you said, the maker, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranita. So in one sense, the only process is bhakti, but it doesn't need to be in the form, here, like Jesus, what's the essence of what he taught? Bhakti. So if someone's a sincere follower of Jesus, the essence of what's in the Quran is bhakti. So yeah, so whatever system or like Stephanie or whoever, it needs to be an authorized system. We're not saying what Prabhupada gave is the only way. We are saying bhakti is the only way. Excellent. But bhakti can take many forms, what Jesus gave so many ways. But and then there's the thing of the essential teachings of Jesus and what's come down in the name of Jesus. There's that whole question. We won't go into that. But it needs to be authorized. It needs to be coming from God. Otherwise, if we just speculate, it's like, but I feel today that the left side, it's like,
I follow someone who speculates.
yeah, if we're following someone or reading a book, what's their authority? So Prabhupada is a bona fide, empowered authority to give us self-realization and God consciousness. I'm not saying he's the only one. At the same time, if we're following someone, let's check their credentials. What's their parampara? What's their disciplic succession? Well, is this, some guy in the 60s and it was like, whoa. Yeah, well, we're going to probably crash on the way to Orlando.
Someone wants to take a lot of hours.
Well, I mean, if that's not a bona fide credential, what is? Stephanie, I appreciate your question and your personal sharing very much.
Thank you.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Prabhupada is a safe bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Prabhupada's safe bet. Sure thing. Yeah. And my only regret is that I'm not following him more sincerely. And if someone has another process that's genuinely bona fide, coming from God in an authorized way, and there are ways to check that, we don't need to be, well, how can you know? No, there's ways to check that. And that's working for them. That's wonderful. And it's full honor and respect. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad. Hare Krishna.
Ashadam ki jai.
Jai. Hare Bol. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Are these like, do they have a lot of the ones that are done in the programs?
Oh yeah, they have everything that's done in the program. It's in both, but the books are slightly different, but they all have everything in the program. Yes, they do.
So what's the part about Pradhan and Maya?
I didn't even go there.
You didn't really get it, so maybe you can explain it to me.
Okay. Should I turn off the Zoom? Okay.
That's your choice.
I can
Make it
answer
you.
Yeah, I believe it's a building sector, so maybe those sign off if they want.
Hare Krishna.
Today is your actual birthday?
It is today.
Well, I guess, what are you have your Vedic chart on this one or no?
I don't even know when my
So
Vedic
Western
birthday.
Sagittarius.
I think in the Western Sagittarius.
Yeah, and then
Yeah. Right. That was me. Yeah. Touched it.
I think it's from Kristen. She had tweeted.
But we are conscious. So in that sense, we're superior to that. We forget that we're conscious. And we slaves and we're actually part of those consciousness. Yeah. So they tried to some other Bhagavatam. Program covered is covered in the we're conscious. When it comes to
Would you like some rice, Prabhu?
Great idea, but no hard work.
Good morning.
How is that?
That's good.
Gauraya Bhava Bhumistang